Shams comes in over the top this morning. The offer, in fact, was Jaylen Brown, obviously, along with Derrick White and a first-round pick. The Nets said no, they want Marcus Smart, multiple picks, possibly another rotation player, and round we go. There's a million thoughts off of this that we can talk about, but I think there's two things. As time goes on, we have something very recently talking about Windhorst was on ESPN, and he said this is weeks old, and not anything new. And obviously, this feels like a Nets leverage play here. They're trying to me, the report is more about the counter offer than the offer. It's about the fact that they want to show the world that their asking price is still so insanely high that they're not only do they want Jaylen, but they want Marcus Smart, a rotation player, and multiple picks. So bring your best offers forward. Whatever it is, there's a couple of concerns here, Bobby. And, I want to get your initial take on it, but I think we'd be remiss not to show this. How's Jaylen going to feel about it? This is a guy with a massive chip on his shoulder. That disrespect card he's been playing it since
we know now, right?
Since he got booed, on draft night. He's talking about it in the NBA Finals. There's always an issue. He's liking certain tweets. He's doing this. So what's Jaylen's reaction to the rumors? Uh-oh.
Oh, man.
I'm shaking my head. And I get it. And so now you've got Celtics Twitter flooding Jaylen's timeline. We love you. We love you. We love you. We love you. Blah, blah,
Nick's
blah,
in
blah,
there.
blah.
I saw Nick's in there.
Look, there's multiple stories. This story has so many layers. So rather than vomit it all out at once, what's your initial read on what's going on here?
I'm not surprised that the Celtics made an overture here. They are in a unique position here where every other star, we've talked about it, John, has some sort of limitation when it comes to that star's ability to be flipped for Durant because of the Ben Simmons situation where he's on this rookie extension where you can only have one of those players on your team that you designate for that extension. You can't have multiple players, blah, 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 blah. So no Devin Booker, no Bam Adebayo, all these different teams that we've kicked around. Tatum gets taken out of the fold here too. Jaylen Brown, when you start to look around the league and teams that might be interested in Durant, and the Celtics should be among them, is maybe the only star that the Nets could trade straight up Durant for Brown, keep Simmons, maybe keep Kyrie. I don't know how they feel about that. That's another layer to this that we have to get into. But if you're the Celtics, you can come through with an offer like this right now, Brown, White, and a first, and say, what else are you going to get, Brooklyn? You've been sitting here for 4 weeks trying to get any momentum going. I'm sure that's why the Celtics eventually came through with an offer like this. And then the Nets go, all right, we'll flip it on you. Looks like the Celtics are trying to trade Brown. And now all of a sudden there's a fire in Boston. So I see this.
It's a clever play too.
Together, for both sides here.
It's a clever play from the Brooklyn side. One, I don't think anybody, I don't think GMs are like, oh my God, it takes that. I've got to offer so much more. Those are dumb. These NBA insiders are plugged in. They know who's talking to who. The NBA insiders, these GMs, they know who's talking to who. They know they're not believing the market is as robust as the Nets will have, nor do they believe that the Nets are holding out for this much. They just want that to be the perception. I don't think that's the thing, but it is a very interesting play if you're like, all right, I'm going to blow up Boston's universe because I know Jaylen is sensitive as hell, and throw it out there that they're shopping him. And now let's see what happens. Now, do I force a situation where they have to trade him? Do I take back that leverage? That's pretty real. So
I noticed the difference in the Woj reporting versus the Shams reporting, and Shams has been pretty plugged into Brooklyn, as we know, through the whole Simmons ordeal and everything else. He comes through and says the Celtics offered Brown. Woj is like, they could offer Brown, and some picks here and all the rest.
That's the whole point is, and again, so let's break it down in the simplest form. If this is old, which it probably is, and the Celtics, like any team, and Brad, like any executive, once you hear a player of Kevin Durant's caliber is on the trade market, you're going to inquire. It would be negligent if you didn't, okay? It would be malpractice. So, of course, you check in. Naturally, because Jason Tatum cannot be traded because of that rookie rule, the only person who you could possibly move, and the only person who could ever possibly move in any major trades from the Celtics end, is Jaylen Brown. It's why his name gets mentioned the most in trade talks. If Tatum is untouchable, the only guy you can move to create to get other types of talent or different players in here is Jaylen Brown. He's going to be part of every major deal, no matter what. So naturally, the conversation is going to center around Jaylen and what else.
That's where
Of
it gets
course.
interesting, though. So again, we
And
keep kicking around
I
about
don't even want to
offer.
debate the basketball merits
Yeah.
of this because we have done this show. We know how each of us feel about Durant and about Brown and about whether this deal is the right fit for the Celtics. I'm less concerned with that and more concerned with whether or not how the impact here on Brown, hearing these types of rumors, knowing that it bothers him, wondering whether the Celtics are in fact concerned that Brown is a flight risk in 2 years. And I am 1,000%. So again, where do I fall on this in just the simplest terms, Bobby? I don't want to trade for Kevin Durant because he's a I don't like him. I had to edit myself 5 times. I don't like him. He has a bad track record of poisoning every single place that he goes. And I know he didn't necessarily do that in the Nets, but he is,
Or Golden State.
It takes very little to upset him. That's all I'll say. It takes very little to put his nose out of joint. He's 33. I know he had a productive season, but he missed a lot of games. He's coming off an Achilles tear. He had a knee injury, and the cliff is coming at some point or another. And when it comes, you're going to be like, crap, we didn't get the best out of Durant, and you're going to be annoyed by it.
Let me flip that. So you want to, you're worried about Brown.
I am still 1,000% listening to offers for Jaylen Brown, if not secretly looking to see what can I do here if I am indeed worried that he's not going to be around, because you can't have him leave for nothing. You can't lose the star and you can't lose the cap, space on a player like that. You can't be left with Tatum and the rest of
that can lead to you losing Tatum. We've talked
and
about
that can lead to you losing Tatum.
Where he falls on this is going to be interesting, right? I don't think he probably has a strong take on it, considering how he's approached these type of conversations in the past. But would he like playing with Durant? I think so. I think those two are pretty close. I think they had a good run on USA and all the rest. Sure, he's a guy that he's looked up to. He's talked about that. So I don't think this would bend Tatum out of shape to do something like this. What I do find interesting is the notion that the Celtics offered Brown, because again, you said due diligence. Every team's got to have this conversation. If you even give Brooklyn the ability to go out there and say, oh, we got offered Brown, you're in a tricky spot if you're the Celtics. So they didn't just dip their toe in the water here, John, did they? They seriously talked to the Nets, it seems like, about actually doing this and realized it's going to take Brown. That's like a prerequisite for even getting in on this talk. So we'll offer him. We can quibble about the different other pieces that are involved in this, but they were willing to involve Brown, White, and a pick. If Brooklyn was going to say yes to that, then they would have done it, right?
It solves a couple of problems. And if that were the deal, I understand why Boston would make it, because now you're looking at it more than just, do I like my team with Jaylen Brown on it going forward or Kevin Durant on it going forward better? And if you're able to rid yourself of the uncertainty of what Brown will do in a couple of years, that's one less thing you have to worry about. And what appears to be a mistake of a Derrick White deal, and you're able to just kind of offload that contract, because now you've got massive redundancy at the point guard position now that Brogdon is here. So, if you have Brogdon and Smart as your two guys who you're paying, you don't want to be paying $60 million to your point guards, and they're paying $60 million to 3 point guards. Trying to find a way to get off of one of those guys in a way that doesn't hurt you. You don't want to do it as a straight dump. Makes sense. So I actually understand from a business perspective why this works for you and why it would be offered. But it's also an offer, it's an offer they won't accept. And if that's as far as you're truly willing to go, then it means you're not actually serious about trading for Durant.
That's true. So you probably shouldn't have even done it if that's how you look at it. But I think they are interested.
So you don't. The only fear in doing it, there's no fear in making a lowball offer in general, because that's the point. You make these what you consider to be lowball offers, and if the team takes it or starts to have a conversation off of that, and now you start to spin the wheels and say, does this work for us? You still can ultimately decide yay or nay. The only fear is Jaylen hears it. Jaylen gets mad. Jaylen, it furthers his desire to leave if in fact he does want to leave. And now you've got that mess on your hands. So that is always the downside. It's impossible. Like, whether or not Jaylen Brown is involved in actual trade discussions, his name's coming up, right? Every single time. His name's always going to come up, especially
from the other team.
When a star is available. We've done this with Beal. We've done this with Lillard. Now you're doing it with Durant. I don't actually know why Jaylen Brown would be upset. I don't get it. Like,
well, you got to get it.
Not really. Your name's coming up whether it's real or not. Okay? So you believe the conversations are real, or it could just be stuff floated from the other side. You don't actually know.
Well, that's why I'm surprised we haven't seen that. Oh, the Celtics say Brown hasn't even been talking, or like their side of it coming out, right? Because that would be the easiest thing in the world to do right now, is come across and say, boom, we haven't talked Brown, or Brown's not going anywhere.
That's
coming.
Blah, blah,
blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
that's coming. You're going to get some reports coming out from the Celtics side of things, I think, fairly soon. There's absolutely no truth to the rumor. Jaylen Brown, yada, yada. Celtics have no intention of trading Brown, X, Y, and Z.
Especially after he tweeted.
Now we have a report here. This is a weeks old story. So again, every time a story like this comes out, Bobby, you have to consider the sources, what's in it for the teams involved, where it came from, what's real, what's not real. And I do think as it comes into focus, Celtics absolutely kicked the tires. It's very possible they said, this is about as far as we'd be willing to go if you want to discuss it. That offer, as Brian Windhorst suggests here, might have been sitting on the table there for a little bit, and it might still be sitting on the table. It might not even be real. Windhorst says Brooklyn's not actively engaged in anything because I think the market wasn't what they wanted it to be. The thing here, though, Bobby, is if you're Brooklyn, you are one Kevin Durant tweet away or report away of him not showing up to training camp, and your leverage drops like crazy. So you are playing a dangerous game here, because once you realize that Brooklyn has to trade, as long as KD and Kyrie will accept returning for a year, which Kyrie already has because he opted in, and KD has not bucked yet, as the trade market has seemingly gone cold.
We haven't heard much from Durant at all.
I've not heard anything. He retweeted something Draymond Green said today, had nothing to do with this report. He was talking about the 2017 Golden State Warriors. As long as KD remains at least content enough to not make a fuss, and there's no reports out there, Brooklyn has leverage. As soon as KD says, I've given you enough time, you got to make this happen or I'm not showing up. Major problem. On two fronts. The problem one is they lose their leverage. Problem two is another example of a pouting diva superstar that's going to take his ball and go home if he doesn't get what he wants, and makes him even less appealing to some people who are already scared off by that kind of behavior, seeing that he just shot his way out of Brooklyn and he hasn't even really kicked in his 4-year extension.
The hardest part from the start of this has been deciphering what Durant's motivation was in making that trade demand. Was it a leverage play for him? Was it in defense of Kyrie? Was it to get away from Kyrie? Or is he just trying to sow discord around the league? I mean, that could be a motive too here, right? The Nets are in a tricky spot in the East, and he's like, all right, let's get these other teams kind of jerking their heads and looking at me here. And maybe that sows some disdain in Miami, where they're shopping Hero, or Boston, where they're shopping Brown in a possible trade like this. That's kind of a little like overthinking it. I do think that Durant probably wanted to trade if he was actually going to put that out there, and just isn't the kind of guy who's going to get that much drama rumbling. Although we'll see come training camp time here, that's when the real motivation behind all this will become apparent. So that's what we have to figure out here before we really know where this is going to go. Because if he just wants out and wants to get the hell away from Kyrie, I think this probably happens, right? If he's in it with Kyrie and they're cool and he's standing up in defense of him, maybe they play out a last dance style year in revolt against management here who put their foot down. But that's the other thing we have to consider, right? Ownership made this decision in Brooklyn that we're going to take a stand against Irving here, because I think it would have been easier for Sean Marks to say, just give Kyrie the money, we'll keep this together, and just pray each year in and year out that things break our way and we'll win a championship. ownership said we were just in the tabloids all year looking like idiots because this guy wouldn't get the vaccine. So we're going to take
Beyond
this year
that,
by year.
it's an investment. You are literally you are investing in your future. And Kyrie looks like a bad investment right now. So I
Yeah.
understand why ownership is the money. They can tell you, I I'd have no problem spending. I'm one of the richest guys on the planet. I will absolutely spend money. I don't know if I want to spend it on this guy. That's it. So it's not it's not ownership meddling. It is basically, I own this business. I don't want to do business with Kyrie Irving. And I don't think it's that remarkable that ownership would, in fact, step in there and kind of draw this line in the sand. How it also, it was the right play by them
Yeah.
because
Depends what you want
I'll
out
tell
of it.
you why. I don't think he doesn't have options. And what do you want? He doesn't have great options next year either. It's always going to be sign and trade. The teams that have cap are teams he doesn't want to go to. So he's not going to just walk to Indiana and sign there. It's just not going to happen, So it's always a sign and trade situation. So you're not really at risk of losing him for absolutely nothing.
Well,
But
you're at risk of losing Durant, right?
you are. But again, here, if you're the Nets, the best case scenario for the Nets is both of them hold their noses, return, and things actually go well. Ben Simmons plays, and all of a sudden they're like, this could work. Kyrie has a year of best behavior. Now you have a James Harden kind of, discount deal there on the table as potentially a market, something that, he might consider if he wants to stick around here. And maybe that is his best play. Maybe re-signing there for 2 or 3 years is the right play for Irving. And that's something that's more palatable to you. The best case scenario for the Nets is they all show up. They stop their bitching, complaining, and all of the nonsense that kept them away from each other and off the court last season. And it starts to look good. And now you don't have
Are
to
you
do
counting
anything.
on that though?
I'm not, but it's better than Kyrie walking for nothing at the end of the year potentially, or trading Durant, at a time where you have reduced leverage. You're going to get worse there, and you can't go into full rebuild because you can't tank. Your picks are going to go somewhere else. You're going to trade Durant to a contender. They're going to be better. You're going to get a bunch of picks in the 20s.
So let's build off
while
that,
you're
though.
tanking and watching your top picks go elsewhere because you've already traded them away to when you started this mess in the first place. They can't go backwards. They have to stay competitive. And so they have to get good players or use the ones that they have.
So what was the motivation in them putting this out there today then, if their goal is to ultimately keep this together?
It's not their goal. I think that's a fault. Their goal would be get a massive haul for Durant and be happy with it. That includes a player that's good enough to jump in, and you don't lose you don't go too far down from Durant. The drop off isn't huge, and the player coming back plus a bunch of picks and assets to help you replenish, which protects a little bit against the future if things do go awry, and things don't work out a little bit. Now you have some of your own assets to mess around with. I believe the point of the report today is simply to show the world once again our asking price is still really high. And again, the conspiracy theory that you floated earlier, potentially, that to sow a little discord in Boston and say, of all of the lowball offers we've received, this is actually the one I think we'd be down with. So let's create
look at Miami. Miami has chopped their whole roster 10 times over. Yeah. I'm sure that's not growing great down there either, especially as they're about to talk hero extension. So there's a couple different places that they could shake up a little bit here. Even Toronto. I mean, Toronto's not looked at as a contender, but they're moving in that direction right now.